dark of the blue. Don't let us hang around this town and let what others say come true. We're just good for nothing. They all forget a boy's grown up. Peace, everyone, and welcome to this Friday. It is November 21st, Friday at 5 o'clock. So that must mean it is darker than blue. And I am Jackie Lukman. Thank you so much for joining me today. Man, it's been quite an eventful week. I don't know about you, but I've been running like crazy. Deadlines, things going on in the world, things going on domestically. We're trying to catch up, trying to keep up, and trying to forge a new path forward. But I'm so glad you are joining us right now, listening to this show, Darker Than Blue, the show where we talk about politics for the people that you just heard Brother Curtis Mayfield say are darker than blue. That's me and you, folks. I am really excited for this show tonight because I get to celebrate comrades who are doing amazing work and have been doing it locally for 10 years. And I get to talk to another comrade who is doing some amazing work on an international level that is so important. So this is great. I love doing shows where we talk about organizing in real life, what it looks like, what it means when we celebrate the things that we have to celebrate, even as we're focusing on things that are still really, really messed up that we have to continue to work at. So let's get to the celebration part first, y'all, because I am really excited that I get to talk to a comrade who, those of you who are watching on Black Liberation Media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on Lukman Nation on Patreon, Facebook, and Instagram, you see on the screen, but those of you listening on WPFW 89.3 FM or listening live online at WPFWFM.org, or if you are listening via the new WPFW app where you can take all of your favorite programming in your hand, right in your pocket, purse, pocketbook, briefcase, every day, wherever you go. But I am happy to be joined by Comrade Johannes of Pan-African Community Action to talk about a very auspicious occasion that we are marking for PACA today. Johannes, thanks so much for joining me, comrade. We can't hear you.
Peace. Hey, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Man, because these one-man shop type of operations, you always wonder, what button didn't I push? What button did I push that I shouldn't have pushed? Did I connect something that I shouldn't have? So glad we can hear you. Thank you so much for joining me, because tomorrow for Pan-African Community Action, that is a very auspicious day, and it kind of actually crept up on me way faster than I realized. And I'm sure it's got to be kind of a whiplash situation for y'all too. What is tomorrow? Why is it so important for PACA? And what are we going to do in order to mark the occasion, Johannes?
No, absolutely. Tomorrow is an excellent and important celebration, the continued work that Pan-African Community Action is doing on behalf of our working class Africans and Black folks in Southeast DC. So tomorrow we will be celebrating from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Dar al Hurriya Palestine House of Freedom at 650 Pennsylvania Avenue, Southeast. We're going to get together. We're going to have a celebration from Son of None, which is one of the highlights, I believe. Food, beverage. We're going to have some political education in which we're going to talk about our popular education program, our Sada Shakur study group, as well as our burgeoning community control of health program, the People's Pan-African Wellness Front. So it's going to be an excellent opportunity to come together, everyone learn a little bit. For those that are continuing on this journey to contribute to the struggle, tomorrow's going to be another day to step up and see comrades and build, as well as those that have yet to take that step. It's an opportunity to do so. We're going to be celebrating the community that's been with us for this 10 years, and we're going to be telling them what's in store for the next 10 years, and as long as we need to fight to win.
Yeah, you know, the connection with the community in regard to local organizing is really, really important. And I don't think people quite understand the role and the importance of local organizing in the broader struggle for liberation for working class and poor African people, but for all working class and poor and oppressed people around the world. Why is Pan African community action so important in the ongoing struggle against imperialism, Zionism, endless war? And why is that particularly important for an area like Southeast DC, Johannes, where sometimes I think that we forget that our material conditions reflect a specific political reality that we don't realize is connected to international issues, and because we don't understand that, we kind of think we are operating in a silo, or that we're the only ones going through this, or we're not, our problems aren't connected to other people's problems. Why is local organizing so important in addressing those kinds of perspectives?
No, that's a beautiful question. And it's an important and a very large question. So I'll try to be concise. A brilliant comrade of mine has spoken recently on externally about how organizing needs to be demystified. And so when you're highlighting the international connections that are just necessary, not just like desired, but necessary to advancing in struggle, it makes me think of that note in that we're starting in DC. So obviously we understand in Pan African Community Action that this struggle is global, is national and all else. And it's linked to a history as well. So there's depth there, but we're starting in DC and in Southeast not just because of our origins in the Justice for Zoe campaign, which I'd love to get to, but beyond that particular moment, we're in Southeast because in Ward 7 and 8, we're most positioned, our neighbors are most positioned to understand our colonial conditions. They're most conditioned to understand and most prepared to understand and thus respond to the fact that capitalism and imperialism don't just not work for us, but they can't work for us. They can't work for the masses of Africans globally. They don't work for working class people otherwise, and they certainly don't work for colonized folks that are struggling around the world. And so when we get our neighbors on the east side of the river to understand that, as we program with them and to meet their short-term needs, as we do and with our popular education program, or as we attempt to rather daily with our popular education program, as well as our burgeoning community control of health program, as well as initiatives such as our community control of public safety, community control of police programs. We're really trying to collectivize the revolutionary potential that's there so that we can meet people's needs in the immediate and then gear them up for what's to come, because we have a fight ahead of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you brought up the Justice for Zoe campaign, because that's where I got connected with Pan-African Community Action 10 years ago, in response to, at the time, the latest extrajudicial police killing of a young Black man here in DC. And it's very interesting, Johannes, we're dealing with the same issue again. Just in the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, I think it's been 4 Black men killed by DC police, MPD, not the National Guard, not the ICE. They're not ICE agents. They're Klan members. They're the former Proud Boys. They're the Oath Keepers. That I won't call them ICE agents because they need to be called what they are. They are deputized white supremacists. But it's not them that has taken the lives of these 4 Black men in this city over the past 2 weeks. It's MPD. So we here in Southeast DC have understood that this has been the problem. The policing in this city, in our communities, has been a problem that has existed for us long before Trump, hence the creation of PACA 10 years ago in response to the police killing of someone that you're going to tell us about right now.
No, absolutely. And to that point, right before I get in, part of the backdrop that you laid out in the extrajudicial killings of some of these African brothers and sisters, even during this period, very notable Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Mike Brown, for example, at this time, very notable. But none, and while DC was responding, none were responding to instances that had happened in the district up until this point. And I just want to lay out as well, part of the backdrop to your point. For my entire lifetime, DC has been democratically led, for example, as well as municipalities in the surrounding metropolitan. So just keep that in mind as we continue our conversation. But absolutely, Alonzo Smith, a 27-year-old brother that was killed in custody of private police. And so PACA was responding to this moment in with the backdrop that we just laid out, right? And so part of this history includes the demands that were made, not just in terms of the accountability demanded, accountability be handed down for those involved, not just, but in addition, demanding transparency from our institutions, or our institutions. But,
yeah, I was about to say, like, wait now.
but the institutions that are in power, right? And so demanding MPD be more transparent about that particular case. But then part of the role of PACA then and through till now is including the demands that the UN and the Organization of American States investigate not just Alonzo Smith's death, but why there's this lack of transparency. And then another important point, centering it around continued struggle and protracted struggle, is the demand for community control, full community control of police.
And this struggle, lifting up all of the contradictions that we just raised about why PACA existed, continues, because despite what people think, Johannes, this stuff didn't start with the first Trump presidency. It didn't start with this Trump presidency. This has been an issue in this city, and not just in this city, but we know from our research and from our own organizing that this is a constant and consistent factor in all domestic colonies across this country, where working class and poor people of all ethnicities just about reside, because the capitalist class has to suppress the anger that is growing of the working class and poor communities in this country, because we know we are being ripped off. We know we are being lied to. We know the endless wars are vacuuming up all of the resources, all of the money that should be allocated to meeting the people's needs, but we know they're just taking all of that money that comes, a lot of that money that comes from our taxes, particularly on the local level, doesn't come back to us to meet our needs, but goes to the police that act as judge, jury, and executioner on the street, but also goes to the international war machine that suppresses and takes the lives of working class and poor and oppressed people and colonized people all around the world. So, what's it been like, Johannes, to do this kind of organizing, which is not, I think I've been thinking about revolutionary radical organizing, centering the Black radical tradition and focusing on African colonized people in particular is, I don't want to say it's uniquely difficult, but it is unique. I think it's unique for the unique reasons and the unique ways that we are oppressed and indoctrinated in particular. And I'm specifically thinking about what's her name, Nicki Minaj at the United Nations this past week. Like that, who else would get excited about that other than Nicki Minaj fans, right? And how we see how this thing called entertainment, that we've been calling the entertainment industrial complex now, is used to present these ideas to our people, in particular generations of people, that the empire is good, that the imperialist line is correct, that it is moral, that it is right, that the lies the empire tells about what's going on in Nigeria, it being a war of Muslims against Christians, well, that's not true. And there's imperialism underneath that, not a religious conflict. But that's just one example of, I think, one of the things that we we Black radical tradition anti-imperialist organizers have to decolonize. We have to help our people unlearn these kinds of specific ways that we are indoctrinated by the state and by the empire. Have you found that organizing in these kinds of conditions is more intense, um, or presents a different challenge that maybe other people may not have, but there's a there's a silver lining to that also. I hope you realize where I'm going, but I'm wondering how you see organizing in this time of heightened media illiteracy, particularly with social media.
So that's absolutely another layer. I will say, particularly at this time, something I yield to is the internationalist notion that all of our struggles are connected. Trying to keep that primary, and trying to keep primary, at least for us organizing in Pan-African community action, what is immediately necessary to building material models of what change could look like for our people. And so while I absolutely empathize and tend to agree with the uniqueness, I absolutely agree with the uniqueness of an African struggle, wherever, if it's diasporic or on the continent, in this time in particular, as as various colonized people in the Caribbean are under consistent threat. You look out and beyond this Cold War with China, and you look at and our neighbors in North Korea on the peninsula under consistent threat and propaganda, to your point. You look in the Middle East and the entirety of the occupation throughout that whole history. I just want to be mindful of keeping, for folks that are you still need a bit of convincing of the reality that we are connected to a long history of cultural struggle, right? That our struggle is unique, but our struggles are still thoroughly connected to our brothers and sisters of the Global South. And with that in mind, understanding that we need to continue to build where we are, we need to continue to organize our people. And what that means or what that looks like is developing institutions of democratic and direct democracy, such that our folks can go through the process of accepting these realities that you and I and some of our comrades and our freedom fighters and ancestors, all else, understand to be true. And so for us in Pan-African Community Action, that looks like our Assata Shakur Study Group. That looks like our People's Pan-African Wellness Front, which is our community control of health program. That looks like us pushing forward campaigns such as community control of police. And that looks like tomorrow's celebration at Dar Al Ghuriya Palestine House of Freedom from 5 to 9. So all of these things are connected to your point. It's a large question. We could go at it for a moment, but for a while. But I'll yield there for the time.
Yeah, I mean, I like giving listeners and viewers an insight into the way we organizers think, right? Because I think it's just like everything else. Unless you're on the inside of it, people tend to mystify, right? And I think the way we learned about the history of our the history of domestic struggle for liberation, particularly among African people, we venerate our forefathers, and we should, because they risked their lives to push us closer to liberation. But I also think we do this thing where we sort of mystify what they've done, as if what they've done is some otherworldly, alien, mystical, ooh, I can't do that. Like, no, they literally talk to people. Like, this is the thing that I think that people don't understand about organizing. The very basis of organizing is talking to people about things that people are experiencing. That really is it. I mean, so has that been helpful for you, particularly with the outreach that PACA does? Because you all are fantastic at outreach. Has it been helpful to you to just keep it that simple? This is about talking to people.
I think there's enough on our plate that does absolutely help. But then, to your point, this is a long and protracted struggle that we have to understand doesn't have an immediate, foreseeable end until we create that outcome, right? And so, short answer, yes, but you want to contextualize that in an understanding of our broader analysis that is internationalist, that is Pan-Africanist, which to PACA means the unification of the continent, its diaspora, and its inhabitants under scientific socialism, which is to say we need a future in which self-determination is a reality for the collective of African peoples, and so that everyone's needs are met. And so in the immediate, it's always important to lead with how are we addressing our people's needs. But in the long run, it is vital that we are doing our work of a vanguard organization in capturing that energy and directing it so that the will of the people isn't siphoned off from counterinsurgent, counter-revolutionary outfits. Just briefly, I think your question actually really highlights my own journey in interactions with PACA, in that much of my individual development had to do with your excellent contributions, or with now BLM, a lot of the contributions on this particular platform. And so if you're not serious about revolution, if you're not serious about contributing to your people, if you're not serious about caring for others, even if you're not defining your politics by revolutionary standards, all else, if you're not serious about tending to people's needs, you will stay just siloed, looking in front of your computer. But if you are serious at all, you will find where work is being done, plug yourself in, and to your point, you need to talk to people. You will be called upon to do that. It's okay not to know what the next steps are. So for PACA, for example, a social core study group, I'm only able to show up in front of you today and then share this message with all the great folks watching, because PACA and my comrades, as well as freedom fighters before this 10 years, contributed to this work. And so that's what I'm coming in with. I'm coming in hoping to just, where can I plug in? What do you have that I don't know? Because you don't have to come in knowing everything. That's part of, I think we've talked about this offline before. A lot of folks, including myself at the time, thought you had to know everything or be up to a certain standard to be able to step into an organization. It is necessary that the only thing that you come with, it is important that what you come with, if nothing else, is the willingness to become who your people need you to be. Full stop. That's something we've been talking about internally a little bit, but that comes down to whether or not you're asked to do a task, and whether or not you're asked to speak to a wonderful comrade such as yourself tonight. That's whether or not you're asked to tell folks and send out texts about our celebration tomorrow. And so I guess briefly, I'll take you through a small history of PACA that speaks to this as well. PACA was the host organization after the Justice for Zoe campaign. Again, a lot of folks responding to this moment weren't responding with the lens or the analysis that would get us beyond reform, get us to connected to the revolutionary and international and Pan-Africanist struggle to actually have people's needs met. We don't do this, or we don't suggest this analysis because it feels good. We suggest it because the end of capitalism is inevitable. Our people are suffering, and we have to. Capitalism will end. We need to be, it is our charge to determine what comes next. And when I say our, I mean the people, I mean the masses, I mean working class folks. And so PACA was the host organization for the UN working group of experts on people of African descent. We convened at this time a community town hall for organizations and individuals to come and be heard. To your point about talking to folks, a lot of people have opinions, but a lot of people also are inundated with institutions that are laundering, in the words of one of our prominent comrades, laundering our dismay, our righteous anger. And so PACA had this town hall so that we could testify, the community could testify to this working group. And that was crucial in getting Alonzo Smith's case on the historical record, and as well as getting CCOP in the formal recommendations from the working group to the US government. And so that's on the record, for example. PACA also popularized community control of police in DC and continues to provide radical analysis that challenges our colonial condition. We live in America. We live it wherever we live as a diaspora, but we are an internally colonized people, and that's important to understand. Lastly, our social core study group continues to be a method with which we provide folks with an opportunity to gather as well as learn. And it's not just about learning for learning's sake, but you're developing a consciousness through participating in learning in this way. And then lastly, our burgeoning community control of health program, the People's Pan-African Wellness Front, is another initiative in which we're not just trying to answer for folks' needs, but we're trying to get them to develop into leaders of their community in which they understand how we answer for the needs is as important as answering for the needs itself. This is part of what sets PACA and other revolutionary formations separate from simple mutual aid networks or nonprofits. They can't, in particular nonprofits, can't do what we claim to do or what we aspire to do, because they need that relationship. They need us to be extractive resources for this empire. And when we say no, we're developing community control, we're developing systems of dual power, and that's necessary as our people move forward in the struggle.
I mean, you can tell when you are interviewing an organizer because they answer your questions before you ask. They just, we're all doing the same work, so we know exactly what people need to hear about what this work is that we're doing. So I'm so glad that you touched on your experience in PACA, how you've grown in PACA, and the next step in PACA's work, which is the community control over health initiative. That's really important because these are things that touch people's life. Everybody needs healthcare. Everybody needs to understand the things that impact their health, right? We don't understand why data centers are bad for our collective health. Most people know they're a bad idea, but all of the myriad ways data centers will mess up our lives, our water, the land, the air, everything. This is the kind of information and the kind of connection to U.S. government policy, foreign policy, the suffering of working class, poor, oppressed, and colonized people around the world, and the issues that people right here in Southeast D.C. experience. So if this has not convinced you all to come out tomorrow, I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to let you explain to people, because I actually can't say those things because of rules of the FCC. So Johannes, for people whose interest has been piqued, hopefully, by this interview, how can they connect with you all and support the event tomorrow?
No, absolutely. Allow me to just pull this up so I respond properly. But please register for the event tomorrow. The URL is paca10.eventbrite.com. That's PACA turns the number 10.eventbrite.com. Again, we're going to be at Dar al-Hurriya, Palestine House of Freedom at 650 Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast.
You should be able to share now.
Okay. I can share the link.
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah, because I can't, because I'm already sharing the screen.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah, let me pull it up. I'll pull it up. But yes, you'll be able to hear from Beverly Smith, Alonzo Smith's mother, son of none. Again, an excellent performer will be there. Panel discussions on the future of PACA. So if there's anything that you had questions or curiosities about in this particular interview, you're going to have the opportunity to hear more about it. We're developing institutions of power for our people, and so something I just want to lead with in particular is PACA understands power to be able to define our priorities, and when I say our, I mean the masses of our people. Define our priorities, develop programming based on those priorities, and most importantly, be able to defend those priorities. And so our charge right now is developing institutions of dual power and community control so that we can organize our people to be able to develop towards stepping up, to connect with one another, meet our own needs, understand that is a possibility. And when that revolutionary potential is further developed, we're going to be able to link up with other cohorts of struggling folks, not just nationally, but internationally. And we're going to be able to turn this thing around. Excuse me, Jack, while I just pulled this up for you.
No problem. And this is the importance of connecting with organizations and individuals who are doing this work, who are having these conversations in our communities. Listen, when I'm not on the air on Fridays, this is a part of what I am doing. This is why I'm on the air, because I'm an organizer and this is what I do. PACA was my first official organization. Yeah, I went to a whole bunch of protests and I thought I was doing something. And then I learned about what organizing is. And then I, met my late husband, who himself was an organizer in Camden, New Jersey. And he said, look, we're going to have to join somebody's organization to do something. and Pan-African Community Action had just been formed. So it is really important that we not just talk about organizing, that we not just explain the importance of organizing, but we support the people who are doing this work, and we have them speak for themselves, because nobody can explain the importance of organizing in any historical moment better than the people who are having these conversations with the people to bring them along in this struggle. So Johannes, before we break for our station announcements, give the people information for how they can come to the event tomorrow if they choose, and how else they can connect.
No, absolutely. So we're on all social media at PACA DMV, PACA DMV. And for tomorrow's event, please register at the Eventbrite that was on the screen. Again, if you didn't catch it, the URL is PACA turns 10.eventbrite.com. That's PACA turns the number 10.eventbrite.com. We're going to be at Dar Al Hurriya Palestine House of Freedom. That's 650 Pennsylvania Avenue from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So please come on out. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great time, truly. And if you're just hesitant for any particular reason, shed that. You will be welcomed. There will be space for you to learn, grow, and interact with folks. So if you're at all curious, please join us.
Johannes, thank you so much for joining us. We will definitely, I'm sure, talk again very soon, because, the empire never sleeps. So
absolutely.
We got to keep doing this work. Thank you so much for joining. And it is 32 minutes past the hour. So you know what time it is, y'all. It is time for our station break. So, engineer extraordinaire, what do we have on tap for the people today?
The Caribbean Disaster Relief and Recovery Alliance, a nonprofit 501c3 corporation, is seeking relief aid supplies for the victims of Hurricane Melissa. They are accepting non-perishable food items, toiletries, medical supplies, and monetary donations. All funds will go towards Hurricane Melissa relief. Drop-off locations and more information is available at cdrra.org. That's cdrra.org.
Thank you so much. That is really important information. I really have the feeling that the earth itself is just tired of our stuff. And she's trying very hard, I think, to restrain herself, but I'm pretty sure we make the earth itch at this point, some of us. And unfortunately, it is the least among us who are suffering, because those who could do better, those who could improve the situation in regard to the environment and climate and so on, refuse to. They just refuse to, because it makes them too much money to I can't say that word. Ooh, I almost got us in big trouble. Oh my gosh, to exploit the earth in an unhealthy way. Woo, phew. But listen, I am not the expert on this particular subject, but again, this is the beauty of organization, because what you don't know when you are in an organization that's serious and doing real anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, Black liberation focused, Black radical tradition grounded work, you're surrounded by people who are experts in certain areas. And I'm happy to have one of those such people joining us right now. Welcome, everybody. Anthony Rogers Wright, our beloved Hebrewski, a fellow member of the Black Alliance for Peace, and a member of the Environment, Climate, and Militarism Working Group that we just formed in the Black Alliance for Peace a few months ago to address these emerging issues, because like I just said, these things are not going to stop happening. They are all impacting our people. what are we doing about it? So Anthony, thank you so much for joining us. And Anthony is also the host of Full Spectrum right here on WPFW. Tell us what time people can listen to your show here, Anthony.
Yes, Comrade Jackie, always a blessing to see you. Blessings from the Afro-Descendants capital of the world in the Western Hemisphere down here in Belém, Brazil. We're going to get into that more. But people can check out this show at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on the mighty WPFW, where we literally are building a better world one broadcast at a time, thanks to people like yourself. Also want to shout out our dear brother, Netma Freeman, another BAT member. You know, we've taken over the WPFW airwaves, haven't we? Katia messed up.
I know. She's like, I wonder who else I could get. But you know, I'm so glad that you wanted to come on and talk about this, because for people who have been paying attention, the global climate conference COP 30 is happening right now in Brazil. You have been there as a representative of BAP's Environment, Climate, and Militarism Working Group, and you are not only witness to the shenanigans that the Europeans are still playing with this so-called commitment to address climate change and to enact climate justice for the less developed, for the less economically stable, and for the Afro-descended and the indigenous descended communities. But you also participated in a working group there. So let me stop talking, because we sent you to Brazil to do some work. So what has happened? Tell us what happened in Brazil at this conference.
I mean, certainly nothing to do with Black liberation and Afro-descendant liberation. Certainly nothing to do with climate and environmental liberation, which is one of the reasons why Black Alliance for Peace entered this space, right? We refer to it as a requisite intervention, and we must give love to our very beautiful, smooth, clean-cut brother Austin Coles, who's such a I love our brother Austin from Philadelphia. Who's just one of our brilliant young people, so sharp and principled, and just it makes this work very, very easy, and we really centered it around our ethos, which as a key member in BAP leadership of no compromise, no retreat. Right, we simply just were not seeing that element, and this is no shade on Black-led or indigenous or brown-led in environmental justice or climate justice organizations. We're not here to sort of like take people to task. We have something way bigger to do. But one of the first interventions that we made, in addition to bringing up militarism, and I'm going to say this, Comrade Jackie, were it not for Comrade Njamu Baraka, who was also here, and he was just like, this is my first and last cop. But were it not for him, were it not for our comrades from the Islamic Republic of Iran, who were here, were it not for many of our Palestinian comrades, the idea of militarism, while the entire U.S. Armada is 800 miles away, right now off the coast of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, this issue would not have been brought up. The issue, the term ecocide would not have been used were it not for those requisite interventions. And so, what we know now at this point, it's essentially over. They're haggling over language, but we're not going to get an agreement that is at the requisite scale of where we need to be. And one reason for that, Comrade Jackie, is that this is a global climate change conference that had over 1,600 fossil fuel executives, there. You know what I'm saying? Which would be like 1,600 fossil fuel lobbyists at a climate conference, which would be kind of like bringing Jeffrey Epstein back from the dead to lead a conference on child welfare and child safety. And right there, the fact that they were allowed to even be in that space was proof that it obviously wasn't serious. And so, it's just further testament that this is going to have to come from below, like it always has. We're not shocked, right?
Right, but here's here's, I think, the thing that I'm sure many people are asking. Say what? How many? How many
I mean, this
fossil
is
fuel
and this is more
executives?
than last year, right?
And
Yeah.
yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask. Do they just keep inviting more fossil fuel executives every year? Do they keep making more? Because I mean, this was more. This is more than there were at the conference last year. But
Yeah.
but there's also the question, I'm sure, that is on many people's minds who are listening and watching right now. If this is supposed to be a global conference on combating
Yeah.
climate change, why are the representatives of the people who are causing climate change more represented at this conference than
Right.
the people who are being impacted by
That's
what
right.
those executives are doing, to the point where they had to bum rush the conference,
There it is.
Anthony?
There it is. I mean, and it was a beautiful thing that happened a few days before I got here. And just to be clear, it was not as violent as like mainstream media,
Oh,
trying to make
yeah.
our indigenous siblings out to be savages,
Oh,
like, you
please.
know what I mean? Like they just did what they had to do to let it be known to Lula, the president of Brazil, not a leftist, by the way, people, because he's approving oil and gas extraction in the Amazon basin, where these folk call home, and they just wanted to make it clear that, like, President Lula is a hypocrite, and so is this entire thing. I mean, this is being held in a smaller city, Belen, which is like on the banks of the Great Amazon River, and that made it very cost prohibitive for a lot of people. I mean, it made it almost cost prohibitive for me. I don't even want to tell you. This is a new room that I had to switch to because the conditions I was in were so bad. And finally, this morning, when I literally opened my drawer and there were rats in my clothing drawer, but that was what we could afford, right?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of African folk weren't able to come here because it was so cost prohibitive, which was done on purpose, because they know that if they would have held this in Rio, which would probably make more sense, a bigger city, more accommodations, they know that we would have merged with our Afro-descendant comrades in the favelas. They know that we would have merged with our indigenous comrades. They know that we would have merged with brown and black folk in the quilombos, and we would have tore the MFR up. I'm gonna be good, Katia. I'm not gonna curse.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The great eye.
Let's not get both of us suspended.
Right? But right from the outset, you're excluding people, and then I know we're going to come to the big issue at hand. Again, we are in a majority black nation, and it was just I mean, I'm just going to say it was hurtful, and I'm not saying this to get sympathy. I mean, we don't ask for sympathy at back. We just do what we have to do.
Right.
But we still feel, right. We're not pacifists, but we still have big hearts. That's why we do the work the way we do it. But it was hurtful, Jackie, that Afro-descendant issues were not front and center. And the COP presidency, which this year is held by Brazil, basically told us on the third day, we are not going to consider your key demand to be considered a standalone constituency within the UNFCCC, which is sort of like the arm of the United Nations that addresses the climate crisis, albeit not efficaciously.
So there's a whole section of the UN that's supposed to be committed to addressing, or at least making sure. I'm not sure what they claim.
They also have courts that are supposed to stop and prosecute genocide.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to describe these things anymore, because we can clearly see that these institutions, I'm not going to say they don't work. What I will say that they are working exactly the way they were designed to work. We have given them a legitimacy that they've never actually had, that they weren't really designed to have. But I think now we're coming up against that wall of realization that that they ain't like us, and they don't like us. But in particular, the issue here is that excuse me, the people who suffer the most and experience the damage first and worst of climate change, climate catastrophe, it's happening right now, are marginalized, oppressed, colonized people: Black, indigenous, working class, poor peasant class folks. And
Right.
you're telling us, Anthony, that the people who organized the global conference to combat climate change, representing or with representation from the United Nations sector that's supposed to make sure that countries adhere to their climate change mandates, whatever they're supposed to be.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Yeah.
Told Afro-descended people, your issues are not important enough for us to talk about. So why was the demand made to have this standalone platform issue for Afro-descended people so important? And of course, that would expose why denying it is such a travesty and an insult.
Well, I mean, as I was saying from the outset, and I want to be clear again on your show, because like all of WPFW shows, we tell the truth and the full truth on this network, right? First and foremost, we as Afro-descendants who are here, we are as Afro-descendants throughout the world are and have no interest of being in competition or pit against our non-African indigenous comrades.
That's right.
As our dear sister Tara Housefield, who you know as well, is fond of saying, Black, Afro-descendant, and indigenous liberation are tied together. And they always have been since the conquistadors came over here and brought us over here and had, and whatnot. And South America is a very interesting situation, whether it's Colombia, Ecuador, or even Peru. We know our indigenous comrades, when we were, brought over here in shackles, saw something that was like not right and helped many of us get to the Pacific and Atlantic coast, basically because they knew the conquistadors wouldn't go to jungles that they couldn't navigate or if they did, they would do it at their own peril. So we have no interest in being pit against them, even though, like, whether it's consciously or unconsciously or intentionally or unintentionally, many of these white-led so-called civil society organizations, which is a very fancy word for nonprofits, industrial complex, certainly like to do that for whatever reason. So we wanted to make that clear. This effort very much led, of course, by our dear sister, the great Vice Presidenta de Colombia, Francia Marquez, our comrades from Panama, who were just like, look, there was a biodiversity COP in Cali, Colombia, where you and I frequent quite frequently, and this issue came up because Colombia, of course, has Colombia Law 70, which, to my knowledge, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I'm not, is the only national law of any nation in the world that repatriates lands back to Afro-descended people and gives them control, because we have been here for so long that we are like a constituency, not to be in competition with non-African indigenous people, but to basically be on the same plane so that we really can come together. And as a matter of fact, one of the people who lifted this up in Cali was our dear brother Tom Goldtooth of the Indigenous Environmental Network in the United States of America, who was also fighting for that. So this year we wanted to go from the biodiversity COP to the climate change COP and be, listed and considered so that we could be directly involved in the negotiations. We could have veto power. We could have influence on how resources get distributed, because one of the things that was supposed to be talked about here was this idea of so-called climate finance. We say climate reparations, we're not asking for something that we're owed, right? We're not asking for something that we're owed, but that would give us more agency, Comrade Jackie, because if we had a constituency, you would be involved in that. And our brother Addison and Esther in Colombia would be involved in that. And our comrades Manet in Ecuador and all of us, right? To be able to make interventions, no. We're not going to let climate finance be administered by the World Trade Organization. Why would we do that as Afro-descendants? Have you been to Africa?
Climate finance distributed by General Electric, by what's the British Petroleum?
British Petroleum, right? What's next? We're gonna name a civil rights commission after Barry Goldwater and let it be led by David Duke. I mean, come on, and so to be able to lift up those contradictions, but most importantly, Comrade Jackie, is that we know that yes, as you said, we are hit first and worst, and there are nuanced specifics having to do with our material conditions because of how we have navigated 500 to 600 years of white supremacy ideology, colonization, imperialism, and patriarchy. As a Black woman, you have experienced patriarchy as well as an Indigenous woman, but not exactly in the same exact ways, right? And this is what the Combahee River Collective meant by identity politics, is in lieu of identity reductionism. Again, but politics is radical. We're like, we're going to deal with our own oppression first, which is no different than what they say every time we get on an airplane, Comrade Jack.
Right.
Put on your mask and secure it before you help someone else with their mask, right? And that's why the Combahee River Collective was saying, as Black women, this idea of identity politics, of centering our own oppression first, is repugnant, you know, to the masses because of our standing as Black people and Black women specifically. So that's what it was really all about, was not to like force our way and be like, we only want our issues to be considered, right, and centered. We understand, as Ella Baker did, as Ida B. Wells did, as Fannie Lou Hamer did, we are fighting for all oppressed people. We just know you can't even talk about our dear oppressed comrades in Appalachia unless you talk about the oppression of Black people and Black women specifically. No one else is, it's impossible to lift them up, even though they think they got lifted up with their New Deal, their racist New Deal and whatnot. How's that going? How's that going? Right? How's that going?
Yeah, I was reading some stuff as I'm trying to wrap up this last chapter in this book. Things keep happening that make it impossible for me to finish this last chapter because I keep wanting to put everything in the chapter because y'all, the people just keep doing crazy things, and I just keep feeling a need to address it, and I need to cut it off at some point.
I know, but turn off the news, Jackie, and just like we got to send you to like some like deep place in Vermont where there's no like running water and whatnot. And just give you some like remote batteries for your computer and like no internet.
I know, because everything is a shiny thing. Like, oh my God, and every day I have to. The past couple of weeks, I have gotten up, come in here, checked my calendar to meet my meetings, and I've not watched the news because I've had to finish writing this thing. Okay, so 3.5 minutes left. Yeah. You were interviewed today by The Guardian because of what happened there at COP30, but you also have published your observations in Black Agenda Report. So tell us about the Guardian interview and the Black Agenda Report article and where people can find it.
Well, first and foremost, I do want to give props where props are due, right? The Guardian is probably the only outlet down here that was covering the issue of Afro-Descendants. So I do want to give credit where credit is due and much love to our comrades from the United Kingdom for doing that, one. Two, look, I mean, as we all know, we may all look alike, but that doesn't mean we all think alike and that we all have the same praxis, right? And that's cool, you know what I mean? But like, they wanted to speak to me because there are some who do want to consider it a win because there's a few mentions of Afro-Descendants in whatever final document that's going to come out. And I was like, no, I'm accountable to you, Jackie. I'm accountable to Erica Kane and Dr. CBS and Jarima Hill, right? And if I'm posting on Facebook, yo, this is a win, that's it for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, brother, are you being held at gunpoint? Are you okay? Blink twice because, like, we do believe in what the great Pan-Africanist Cabral teaches us, which was tell no lies and claim no easy victories. And if all we're getting is a few mentions when we came down here was to get that constituency and more, no, we can't consider that a win. So that was important. And it did really kind of build off of the Black Agenda Report piece, which was entitled Copying Out in Brazil, How the United Nations Reduced Its Legitimacy More Than Emissions, right? And that's just the bottom line. And it really lifted up the beautiful work that was happening at the Counter COP, which was called the People's Summit. And we wanted to lift up their declaration, which was beautiful. Not perfect, but like absolutely on the right track and talking about material conditions and something else they're not talking about at COP in the Blue Zone, Comrade Jackie, capitalism.
Hmm.
How are you gonna talk about addressing the climate crisis when you don't talk about the thing that is causing the climate crisis?
Well, that's why
right?
you invite 1,600 fossil fuel executives. So you
Exactly.
don't, you got a room full of people who you don't have to talk about capitalism with, because they
It's just
sure aren't going to
implied,
bring it
right?
up.
It's like the Matrix. It's just like capitalism, you know. And these are young people who did this, and it was Afro-descendants and indigenous people and allied, or actually white accomplices, let's go, European accomplices,
Yeah.
who understood that what was happening in that UN space was not going to be adequate. So we wanted to lift that up, because they also lifted up the situation in Rwanda, and they also lifted up Sudan and Congo, and they also lifted up, you know, all oppressed people, and we're like, this all needs to come together. Even like quoting the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, where they're like listing our enemies, not just Zionists, but imperialism as well, capitalism, you know, as well, and really using like beautiful language. So we are actually going to publish the whole thing in BAR, I think, next week, because we want everybody to see this. And it was just like, you know, we at BAR, I mean, it's Margaret Kimberly, so you have to tell the truth. Like, if you don't believe me, write a story for Margaret Kimberly and then let her edit it.
Margaret and Jemima Pierre. Because look here.
And Sister Imani. Sister Imani, you're right. You know me, I tend to try to use these weird phrases. Like what does this mean, comrade? What are you saying? It's like De La Soul is dead. Like, what are they saying? You know, and it was really, really important to do that. And because, you know, Comrade Jackie, starting tomorrow and all through the weekend, not that you should be watching the news, you should be writing your book, but like, you're going to hear all kinds of narratives. We won, like, this is a step in the right direction, and they're still going to be adhering to not even compromise, but an anachronistic Paris Agreement, which was always a surrender. That's why it was written in Paris. But like, you know, but like you said, these COP conferences are doing exactly what they were designed to do, just like the Paris Agreement is doing exactly what it's designed to do. Not be adhered to, but even if it was adhered to, it was never going to keep global temperatures down to the point where our communities, Black, Brown, Indigenous, and poor white communities, getting hit worse and worse, and still subjected to a culture of capitalist slaughter.
I wish we had more time, but we don't. We are out of time. But you can check out Anthony's article in this edition, this week's edition of Black Agenda Report. That's the title of the publication. Go there and read everything in it, including Anthony's article.
And sister, I just want to say, I never forget about you when I come to South America. I got the Brazilian equivalent of Viche, and we got to talk, because they kind of, I'm not going to say nothing right now, because I got to stay in some places in Colombia soon. But I'm just saying.
Okay.
Like,
well,
it
good.
ain't just soccer. It ain't just soccer that the Brazilians are dominating. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, cool. We'll have to see. But until next time, y'all, our luta continua, the struggle continues. But if we keep sharing this information and struggling together, victory is certain. Victory acerta. Peace until next time. Thank you, brother. And no dark room tonight, y'all, because I have to go and celebrate my friend and Pastor Emeritus Graylin Hagler, who is he is ill. He is not well, and we are giving him his flowers while he is still here. So thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Appreciate Johannes for coming by. Appreciate Anthony for coming by. Looking forward to next week's full analysis of the whole COP30 and the bullshit behind it. There you go. Got one curse word for you. All right, y'all. Peace.
Okay. Peace, Jackie. Talk soon.
All right.